And Jess.
And this is a walk in the woods at midnight where we view movies that you can find pretty easily on platforms that are readily available to you in your home. So if you are lazy like we are, then you have it right at your fingertips. So we're going to walk through Sinister today.
Yeah, and I'm going to make a point of writing down where the spoilers occur. We're going to analyze and do an overview because we're going to spoil it and then spoil it really hard because of where it goes in the ending. So I want to make sure people can at least enjoy our analyzation and overview, and then we spoil the heck out of it. So I will mark that. I'll mark that in the comment section.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to start just by giving a spoil-free plot overview. Okay. So first of all, this film was released in 2012. It was directed by Scott Derrickson, and he said that he got the idea for this movie after watching The Ring and then having a nightmare about it. So makes sense, you know. And so just to kind of categorize this, it is, I'm going to tag it with, so hashtag demons, possession, scary kids, family horror.
And occult.
And occult. So, okay, so basically, quick plot outline is, so Ethan Hawke starred in this, which I was kind of like, I don't know, I was really surprised. And he is a true crime writer, and his last hit book was 10 years prior. And he is like really trying hard to kind of get his groove back, and he's clearly, you know, followed a lot of cases and nothing has panned out. So he's really desperate for a hit. So he moves his family into the home of, unbeknownst to them, the home of a family who was murdered. This is the case that he's sort of working on and writing about.
Unbeknownst to his family.
Unbeknownst to his family.
Right.
Yes. So they move in. So actually, the film starts with a kind of a snuff film that I will not go into right now, but then it kind of goes right into them moving in. So what else? Family. I'm looking at my notes.
Yeah, let me just interrupt you for a second, just to say, from the very beginning, this movie, the creepy meter was pinned to the red right from the beginning for me.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning, and it never let up.
I loved that. I mean, it was shocking, and I kind of didn't know how I felt about it, but the opening image, but it was definitely effective.
Yeah.
So after moving into this home, Ethan Hawke, who I'm just going to call Ethan Hawke and not his character name, he goes up to the attic to start to look around the home, goes up to the attic and finds one box sitting there with Super 8 reel-to-reel film in it, which definitely looks like family home movies with innocuous names like Pool Party or Family Picnic or Sleepy Time, whatever it is. And there the story continues. I don't know how much more we can say without it getting spoilery. So what did I forget? How much more?
Well, apparently the family tends to move a lot for him to do intensive research on these true crime books. He has had a lot of hits, but he's had a dry spell for a long time, as you say. His first encounters with the local sheriff who shows up the day they move in
Not
and
friendly.
not friendly. The sheriff is, says, you've gotten some things right in your books, you've gotten some things wrong, and moving into this dead family's home, I think it's in really poor taste. And um, I can say some things about this movie without spoiling them that I think were really effective in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
One thing was that I think that was different than some of the other movies we think. I thought the music in this movie, because it's not all this like screeching violins, there was a lot of really ambient uh, mood setting music that while it was still kind of unsettling, it was beautiful in a way, and it really set the mood without necessarily being scary. I think it's a soundtrack I could actually listen to and enjoy. It as these movies do, it does build to a crescendo when he's about to have a reveal,
Mm-hmm.
but then there's a lot of atmospheric stuff going on, and I thought it was used really effectively.
Especially in the films, that music was just, it was, I mean, that especially I feel like was really ambient and weird and unsettling, but otherworldly. It
Yeah.
was done so effectively. It was so yeah, that definitely was a big standout.
Yeah, and the other thing was the use of, now I watch these movies. I can't watch them at night when my wife's at home, because that's just not going to work. She doesn't like these kind of movies, and even though we have more than one television in the house, where I watch these movies is right in the family room. So I watch these movies during the day, and um, this a lot of this movie takes place in the dark, and they
Yes.
use the dark effectively, really effectively, because when he hears things go bump in the night, this is one thing I noticed. He goes searching in the dark, and you see about 8,000 light switches around, but he never thinks to use any of them.
I know. I was like, Jesus. And I mean, he'll like take his iPhone and
Right,
turn it on and like look. And I get it, but it's, like it definitely adds
right.
to the mood. But I mean, it really is kind of like, here's some horror movie logic for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when he went upstairs to the attic and he just had this little, like
I
his phone. I'm like, come
Who
on,
does
Nathan.
that? Yeah. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
have like at least a police level a flashlight that lights up the whole thing with a gun pointed everywhere else.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So those are the two things I can add that aren't spoilery, that just set the mood really well. Obviously, if he turns on the lights, that's going to wreck the movie. So I thought that was used really effectively. The darkness and the music were really used effectively. I think better than your typical horror movie. The music was used more effectively because it wasn't your typically screeching violins and stuff like that.
Hmm. Yeah, it wasn't really obvious, and I agree with you, particularly in those videos, which are so disturbing that I mean, it's like they have stayed with me. Like I'll
Yeah.
never unsee those.
Well, I'll say that I saw it yesterday, and it definitely affected my dreams. I definitely um it definitely disturbed my sleep.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, yeah, it's really crazy. And I mean, in fact, can we start to dig a little?
Yeah, let's see. We're at 9:42, so that is where the first spoilers start. That's fine. That I think we've given a good overview of it, and we can start digging in now, I think.
Okay, perfect. So, I felt honestly like this movie does have a demon in it who we do like kind of we see him, you know, we get a sense of what he looks like. But honestly, I kind of felt like it would like having this like this demon or this person in charge of making these snuff films, or the person who made these, who did make these, not really in charge of, but a human being, to me might have been even scarier.
Yeah.
Because that's possible, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, I thought the whole time it was a human being until we get to the end. I I don't want to get to the end. I want major spoilers when we get to the end. That's when I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
write major spoilers.
Soft spoilers, middle
Yeah,
spoilers,
exactly.
hard spoilers. Yeah, definitely.
And I'm not sure wasn't he a god of some sort? I guess demon god, whatever. He was,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm
some
not,
kind of demon god, whatever.
he wasn't even, he's not a real demon. I hate to spoil it for everyone. He's not like a logged historical demon. He's based on a couple of demons. So
Okay.
we can call him whatever. So
What was his
Bagul,
name? Bagul?
Bagul, Mr. Boogie. That's
Mr.
what kids
Boogie.
call him. Yes.
Yeah,
I
and
wanted to ask you, how did you feel about, because I know like we talk about movie types, and you were always kind of like, I don't like the scary kid movies.
yeah,
How did you, what did you think? Like, were you kind of, did you forgive it in this one, or
yeah,
were you just, okay, okay,
I did. I did.
okay.
Yeah, I generally don't, but I did in this one. Um for some reason, it didn't, it sort of was in the background to me until we got to the very end. It was in the background. It was more to me, the story was more about his trying to unravel the mystery and his unraveling of himself. There
Yes,
was more
yes.
of a story to me than the kids were. And
Uh-huh.
so yeah, I can forgive the kid part.
Yeah,
You're right. I generally don't like possessed type kids, but the Mr. Boogie thing, I, you're right in the fact that it would have been scarier had it been a person,
yeah.
which kept it scary to me because I thought it was a person.
Right, right, same.
Um, I, um, the other thing that I thought was so scary is that a guy would move his family into a crime scene home without telling his wife.
Yeah,
That brings up serious trust issues to me in a marriage, that somebody would do something that serious and that creepy and that crazy without
yeah.
without actually telling their wife. That to me kind of layered in an extra component of desperation to the character.
Yes, I agree. And I mean, I think that anytime, I think that it's weird because the tension with his character that I found kind of interesting is that he's super obsessed with fame and money, which he thinks is going to help his family out, but really it's kind of more for him, which we
Yeah,
can tell when he watches his old VHS tapes from 10 years ago where he's being interviewed and all that kind of stuff. And I think he slowly sort of realizes some of that stuff throughout the film, and he has many chances to hold back. You know, like he has a chance to not watch the movies. He has a chance to like call the cops. Like
hmm
you see him actually find this like see the first Super 8 film. Is that right? Super 8?
I think it was Super 8. Yeah,
Okay. And
because
those were shot on Super 8, actually,
yeah,
too.
And I think the idea was the Super 8 was uh, invented in 66, and that's
Hmm.
when it was the first recorded murder
Yeah,
was
yeah,
66.
yeah. And so after he views that first one, he like grabs the phone to call the cops, and because he is freaked out. But then he like looks at his book on the shelf and he's like, okay, if I do this, I'm clearly giving up my chances of actually doing this work on my own and being the hero and
Right.
whatever. So and so it really ties together well, like his sort of like outsized obsession with being famous to everything kind of building up with Bagul. So that was pretty cool. It is kind of the Shining, like I will say. Writer kind of gets obsessed and crazy. But what I really loved was the way that he also got really obsessed with the story. And I liked that because that was sort of reflecting my obsession with the story. It's kind of like, great, like, okay, like we're flying too close to the sun here, and it's
Hmm.
like, that gods will be angry if we keep finding out these secrets. And I was just like, that to me was so fun because I wouldn't be able to stop myself. I mean, honestly, probably I would have called the cops, but I'm sure I would have dug around the internet like nobody's business and watched the rest of the film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a morbid curiosity about all this stuff that there's always a little bit of feeling a little dirty as an audience member with some of this stuff. Like, why do I want to see this? I'm so ugh, and you're judging someone else for doing that. Like, how can he watch this? How can he
Yeah.
sit there and watch? And I'm sitting there watching it. So I love that, feeling that sense of like, why do I think this is okay for me, but not for him? And it kind of just brings up a lot of like weird, interesting questions about stuff like that.
Well, and the one thing you didn't mention is when he goes up into the attic the first two times, the symbols of Bagul are in there. He drops a box on the scorpion. Who
Hmm.
has a scorpion in their attic, and
Exactly.
squishes a scorpion? And then the next time he's up there, there's like a poisonous snake up there that he has to deal with.
Hmm.
And that's kind of a dangling plot hole because where'd that poisonous snake go? I mean, there's a poisonous snake loose in the house. He didn't kill that, but
Right.
it escaped. But okay, movies, we'll let
Oh,
that
but
one go.
those are the symbols of Bagul. Like
Right.
yes, yes, exactly. And he's clearly, yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of like, am I losing my mind? Am I
He didn't find that out until he conferred with the professor over the phone, over
weird
the
cameo by
Vincent
Vincent
D'Onofrio.
D'Onofrio.
Yeah,
Weird. Yeah.
who I love. And I love Vincent D'Onofrio. And I have to confess, I'm not the biggest Ethan Hawke fan,
Hmm.
but I really loved the performance he gave in this movie. I thought it
He
was,
carried it. I mean,
yeah,
without him sitting there with these movies, it would have kind of been, I don't know, it would not have been as good. He really was great. Side note, there's a film out starring Ethan Hawke. I mean, it's out, it's like on Netflix. But it's called First Reformation. It's one of the best films I've seen in years. It's not a horror movie, it's not scary, but I thought it was stunning. So
Did you
yeah.
guys never watch Fracture?
No, we didn't. We
Oh, well,
have to
you
do
still need
that.
to see that.
I think like college football stuff is starting, and
Oh, it
so
is. Yeah, this is the
then
first
it's just
weekend.
yes, then it's just me for I'm like a widow for however long, which I've gotten used to and I kind of like, so
I
it's
get it.
not
I
terrible.
totally get it. Yeah.
Um, Also, two things I wanted to mention were one, Ethan Hawke's chunky sweater
Yeah, I have a sweater
deserved
similar to it.
yeah, it was like a character of its own.
Yeah.
And then The second thing was, how about that son having a night terror?
Oh, wow. When he came out of that
Whoa!
box, I was like, what the heck was that?
That scared me from the base of my spine. Like
Yeah.
I can sometimes it's back up, sometimes it's brainstem. That was a that was the lower backbone spine all the way up.
That was a scary moment. And there was
Anything
a lot of scary moments.
contortiony is just, it
Yeah.
just is, it's like we look at that as human beings and we go, that looks like a human being, but somehow it's not a human being, but it is.
Yeah. Um,
So
didn't haven't we seen a movie, one of our movies, some some kid bent over backwards and started walking that way, I feel like.
was that Toni Collette at some point? I don't know if maybe that wasn't, but she was doing weird body things that were,
Toni Collette herself in Hereditary?
yeah. She was on the ceiling. She had like held the
Oh,
door and was beating her head against it, like
oh,
in
oh,
midair.
oh,
I don't
oh.
know if it was part of that sequence, which scared me so bad.
Anything, yeah, body contortion, walking around like that, possessed, yeah, that freaks me out.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah. So he hears a bunch of stuff going on in the attic all the time, and he's always going up in the attic in the dark.
After drinking a ton of whiskey.
He starts with a glass at watching these films, and by the middle of it, he's now drinking from the bottle. And these
Mhm,
films, since we're in spoiler territory, are filmed scenes of the deaths of these families from various points in time, taken from the perspective of whoever did it.
mhm,
And we don't know at this point that he's watching them who did it. And it always involves a missing child.
mhm,
There's always a child missing from these unsolved murders.
mhm,
The family's
mhm.
brutally murdered in a weird, despicable way,
Yeah,
and there's a child missing.
right, exactly, which informs things later on.
Right.
Let's talk about these snuff films for a second. We don't have to necessarily describe them, but
Yeah, let's not. They are disturbing. They are, I mean,
they're deeply disturbing,
yeah,
and they are definitely something that it has been planned and carried out in a way that is absolutely obsessive.
yeah,
Um,
very detailed.
very detailed, always involves a family, have like a queer, like a uncanny, like music to them
Hmm.
that's different from the rest of the movie. If you guys see this, like, say if you like what you thought, like were the snuff films too much? Were you okay with them? I was sort of surprised that things went that far, but then I'm like, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Um, as long as none of the dogs were killed, then I'm okay. Like,
Yeah, isn't that
Sally,
weird? We're okay with people being killed, but stay away from those dogs because
don't
they're
touch
so
the
innocent.
dogs.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah. With that Rottweiler who was like growling at Ethan Hawke in the yard, but he was growling at the ghosts behind him.
yeah.
I was like, don't touch that dog.
Well,
That I would have to shield my eyes from.
there's a
Not,
dog in the snuff. There's a dog in a snuff film that doesn't get touched,
I know.
which
So
is
it's hilarious though, because that is enraging to people,
yeah,
but these brutal, horrible things, I think, are certainly disturbing, but killing the dog, that's a bridge too far, 100%.
yeah. We should do a video sometime about why that is and why we like these movies in the first place. That's a separate topic, but what we get out of these particular movies. I mean, everybody knows why people like to watch rom-coms or
Hmm.
adventure or Star Wars or something, but what is it that drives us to like these kinds of movies? But that's a separate, I mean,
That's for another day.
that's a 30-minute tangent from here.
Yeah,
So
it is for sure.
so
But
he's unraveling, and his marriage is unraveling, and his kids are unraveling
mhm,
as he continues to find um, more proof. Um, he enlists the assistant sheriff or the deputy sheriff,
deputy so and so,
deputy so and so,
who never gets a name aside from that.
right? Who helps him start to put the pieces together about other families that are seen in these videos
Hmm. Hmm.
earlier and earlier and earlier, 77, 98 to 92, all the way back to 1966 in
Hmm.
different parts of the country.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, what am I missing so far?
You got it. It's
Okay,
so I think the only thing that I would say is that the deputy helps him because he's a huge fan of
right.
Ethan Hawke, the writer. And so, I think that, I mean, it's kind of not a reach for Ethan Hawke to make investigation wise that all of these are tied together because all of these are films
Yeah.
in this box. So, going back through, like tracing back through all of these and realizing they're linked, and that realizing they were all living in this house at one point, right?
Hmm.
It's he suddenly is like, holy crap, like, scales fall from the eyes. He is like, I gotta get my family out of here. Nothing matters, fame doesn't matter. I get it, thanks Bagul, we're out, so he
Wait,
moves.
before
Oh.
they move, before they move, I want to say one thing is one of my favorite things. He isolates the image of Bagul on his computer, and while he turns away, the image of Bagul moves on his computer and looks at him and then turns back, which I
Yes.
love when something like that happens.
Yes.
I love that kind of thing.
That was super, super creepy.
It was This movie was creepy from the beginning and just never let up. There was no filler or anything. There was nothing like it takes 15 minutes for this movie to get going. It was just like
Boom.
from the beginning, and just the pressure was on from the beginning.
Yes. Constant.
So he has enough run-ins. I mean, he takes all the videos and the Super 8 projector
Hmm.
after the last, because he pokes his head up. Okay, wait. 2819, big spoiler. He pokes his head up into the attic for the last time, and there's all these dead kids
Hmm.
with the projector going,
Hmm.
and the movie is showing him walking up the ladder into the attic.
Yes.
And that causes him to fall down the ladder, freak out, and then he does what you were about to say.
And then that's when he gets the family out of there in the middle of the night. What am I missing? I see your face. What did I?
He burns the tape. He burns the
Oh
Super
yeah,
8
he
and the
burns.
movie projector. He burns it all up.
That's right. He destroys it seemingly.
He destroys it. His wife comes out, says, "What's going on?" He says, "We're out of here."
Yeah. Yes. Every time that happens in a movie, by the way, where someone is like, we got to get out of here, and the partner, whoever it is always like, well, why? Well, tell me what's going on. And I'm like, would that really happen? I always review in my head as like, would I actually stand there like an idiot and say, and demand to know what's going on. I might, I don't know, but that always goes through my mind whenever there's like someone's partner is questioning like why we have to get out of here right now.
Well, he's kept so much stuff from her. I don't know. I might question it too.
Yeah, maybe. And he's not feeling okay. You know, I mean, like he's definitely like he's going downhill. She realizes it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they get out of there, move back into their home, their former home.
Their old house, yeah.
Their old house, which is gorgeous and way better than the house they moved into. Whatever. So so they are there. They are like, okay, thank God we're home. So we're bracing ourselves, obviously, because we know what's next. So the projector, the cardboard box with projector, with all the films in it, is at their old house.
In the attic.
In the attic. And this
always
is when,
an attic.
always an attic or a basement.
Yeah.
In horror movies, in general.
Okay.
So anyway, so he sees this, and then I know I'm gonna like say something wrong here. So he sees this, he's freaking out. He suddenly, I think, realizes at that point what has been happening, because in all of these films, he's been isolating the frame. And he's starting to figure out that there's this figure who is off in the bushes, or who's reflected in the water, and it's this like that demon face which has already come out to him. So throughout the movie he's seen glimpses of this demon or god or whatever,
right?
And so he's sort of like, who then is shooting these films if this guy is over the whatever, if he's in the shot?
Right.
And so he sort of turns, and he's got his sweet little daughter who, she said something about making him famous. And so he had like his coffee that he was drinking.
There is one thing that you left out.
Okay.
In the box were was called extended cuts or extended endings.
Yes, that's right.
This is where, okay, big spoilers, 32, 35. This is where he edited in everything that had been left out of the other movies, all the endings to the other movies, of the Super 8 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out who exactly was taking those movies.
And who was?
Go ahead.
You remember it better than I do, I think.
Well, that's why I try and watch these things right before, because I don't have as good a memory as you do on stuff. So
clearly
I try and watch them.
but I'm glad you do. So keep correcting me if I'm wrong. So he's sitting in his study. He's watched these extended versions, and he looks into his, I don't know if it's coffee or booze or whatever.
Well,
you gotta finish it for me.
Okay.
I'm forgetting.
Okay. He watches all the extended versions, and it turns out that the missing child is the one that's doing all the killing.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with the very first snuff film where the tree that gets cut and hangs the family, the little girl climbs down off the tree and goes right up to the camera and says like this. And there was a hint that there was something wrong with that girl in the very beginning, because she is, there's either a family photo or it's in the very beginning of the movie, or I think there's a family photo where everybody's happy except she's like this.
Oh, wait a second. Was that so? this wasn't in the hanging video. This wasn't like a family photo you saw in there. This was Ethan Hawke's family.
No, this was the hanging
Got
photo
it.
family. There
So
was
it was in a shot in the back.
it was either in the very beginning. There was like a family photo of her, and she is clearly unhappy and disturbed in the photo, which just sort of lent credence to the fact that she was already unhappy with things. She looked,
Yeah.
I mean, the family's happy, and she's like, all, you know, like the kid from Babadook. She's just
Yeah.
like ready to kill already. But you see all these extended cuts, and it's all the extended cuts show that it's the child that's slipping, you know, dragging the bodies into the pool, setting fire to the car. Um, oh God, that lawnmower scene. I'm glad they didn't do very much of it.
Oh.
That was awful. But it's the kids that are creating these murders, and then Bagul carries them off into his realm.
Yeah. He is the eater of children.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's
And and the final scene, I mean, you can go ahead. You know,
no, you go.
Well, he discovers it, and he's finishing his coffee. But he gets a call from Detective So and So, linking all the houses to all the people. The people in the house in 66 moved to the house in 72, in the house of 72. All these people lived in the same house, and they were the ones that got murdered. And by these various families lived in these houses, and by placing his family in that murdered family's house, even though he had moved back to his own home, he had placed himself into the chain of murders. And that's what Detective So and So had called to tell him.
Yes.
And he just finished his coffee, and he noticed something in his coffee. He set it down, and there was a note there that said something like, "Have a good night, sleep, daddy," or something.
Yeah, yeah.
He gets woozy. He starts to fall asleep, and there's his daughter, who plays Poison Ivy in Gotham, the TV show.
Really?
Yeah, well, she was little when it started. Now she's, I don't know, 17 or 18, but that's where I recognized her from, Claire Foley. And she says something to him, and he's incapacitated. And she incapacitates the rest of the family and gets it all on film. And all you see is her with an axe, and she's got the Super 8 projector up, and
camera.
Yeah, she's got the Super 8 projector up, running the movie, showing everything that's happened. And we see like the bodies, and then we see the children, the dead possessed children on the screen, and then they walk away. Bagul appears behind her, picks her up, and carries her into the Super 8 movie. And I didn't expect that, and I didn't expect, I wasn't sure how this was going to end. I sort of thought he was going to figure it out, and I didn't expect this to have an unhappy ending. And I'm glad that it wasn't a cheap sort of happy ending. I mean, I think it made the movie much better that it had an unhappy ending.
That movie having a happy ending would have been off the charts weird, because you know, the minute it started, you knew kind of what you were in for. You know, it ain't good. So, and the thing that, just even to clarify is that when the families, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but the families who were murdered were those that lived in the house. It was the next house, whatever next house they lived in. So they lived there. They were basically poisoned by Bagul. They left, and then that's where they were murdered. Because otherwise, all the murders would have taken place at that house.
Right.
I guess one of them did, though. So
there was like a starting point, the 66 house in Sacramento, and they
oh, and they moved it and moved it and moved it and moved
yeah,
it. Okay,
yeah,
got it. Yeah.
yeah. And so that was the connecting thread that Detective So-and-so came up with a little too late to help Ethan Hawke's character.
Yeah.
Because he finished his coffee right as his daughter had planned. Right.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, another sort of horror movie logic, although we can say that, maybe at this point she was super possessed and super strong, is that little tiny girl heaving up an axe, and hitting someone hard enough to like kill them. That I was kind of like, really though? But all of the other murders, I guess, were so intricate and so specific that they probably weren't like kids anymore.
Yeah.
Because there were some, knots or chains that you'd have to be a professional.
That car that was chained up all the way around. That was
right.
To
Like
me,
you
that
need
was
supplies for that.
Oh.
You need
Yeah.
to know what's gonna hold. I don't know, but yeah, there's a lot of expertise I feel like required for some of these. So
yeah, so I personally found this movie highly, highly disturbing, highly creepy, extremely entertaining. I don't know what that says about me, but we have this show and we dig these movies. So I mean, I highly recommend this to any horror movie fan because all it's missing is the Ouija board for me.
I know. I was looking so hard for a Ouija board movie for you. I really was.
This hit all the spots for me. It was had plenty of jump scares that weren't cheap. It had things go bump in the night. It had a mystery that needed to be solved.
Obsession.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Obsession, possession. I can't recommend this movie highly enough on my side of the screen for people to watch. I mean, it unnerved me. I had a bad dream about it, so it unnerved the heck out of me. And we can examine in another video why I like to be unnerved by these movies.
That would be a great, I think that would be like a really cool video. We should do that really soon. But, and just to give my 2 cents, I think that this is not a movie that's gonna break your brain. This is not a big thinker. This is something that is just straight up entertaining beginning to end. It's super, it's fun, it's scary. Just get your popcorn, hang out with a friend who likes horror movies, or if in the case of me and Jess, our partners do not love horror movies. So in that case, just be ready to, dream about it if you're on your own. Really so fun.
Yeah. Okay, good. We both agree. And generally, Jen and I don't talk about these movies ahead of time, so we don't know if we're going to agree or not. And I think we've picked nothing but movies that we agree on so far. So we picked some really good movies. We haven't disagreed on a movie yet, but we don't know that until we start recording. So
although in fairness, we usually pick like films that are pretty well reviewed. Because otherwise, like, what are you going to talk about? Like, if it really sucks, you know?
Yeah.
So, but still, we could vary in what we like. So it's true.
Yeah, that's true. And you have pre-screened some movies that you said don't bother.
Right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that needs to be said. You said
Yes.
they're either too dark or weren't any.
They
Just
were
did.
just dumb. Like they were just like,
Yeah.
you know, like a redo of The Omen, but way worse or something.
Worse than The Omen. Jeez.
No,
How's
no, I
that?
mean quality wise, like just really just bad and stupid and nothing
Yeah.
comes together.
So that's it for a walk in the woods at midnight. Unless you have something you'd like to add about this Sinister movie.
No, just really fun and great sweaters.
In the winter you will see my sweater similar to that. I will wear it in the winter.
Oh, yay.
Your husband loves my sweater collection. He always makes mention of it. So
Does he really?
yeah, he was the first one
He
to.
didn't even tell me.
No, well, it's because it's not winter, but on my other videos, he always makes comments on them and stuff. He's really cool about that. So, well, great. This has been a great discussion, and we appreciate your watching this. Feel free to leave a comment, and feel free, please, to subscribe and hit the like button. And again, this has been a walk in the woods at midnight with Jenny and Jess. So thank you, and peace and love. Peace and love.